About 18 months ago, inspired by my friend Ash, I remade the classic letters and numbers game Countdown in Unity. It was buggy and unstable, looked pretty not great, and had a whole slew of terrible design decisions in it. That having been said, it proved to be a fun central hub for a tournament that I ran with my Discord community, a tournament that took so long it didn't actually conclude until May this year. The reason I brought this up is because a lot of my development time over the last year or so has been given over to creating game shows and running them with the community. It started out with Countdown, then moved on to Blockbusters, Dog Eat Dog, and Family Fortunes. Sandwiched in the middle of it all somewhere, I also made an original quiz show called Danger Zone, which has since had a sequel developed for it, which has proven to be quite popular. I've now got more than 10 Unity-created game shows that I run as community-centric quiz nights on Tuesdays and Saturdays on Twitch. I've got a professional background as a pub quizmaster and DJ, so acting as a host is nothing new to me, and the community is so awesome the streams have become real highlights of my week. How does this tie into this project, I hear you ask? Well, one of the styles of game I'd wanted to do was a quiz-related game. I mentioned last time that this game was going to feel very much like worlds colliding, and that's true insofar as up until now, aside from them sharing the same Discord community and having the same people helping out, offering advice and doing additional programming, the game development world and the online quiz world have really been two separate entities. Since the project started, I've actually made 5 new games in Unity. Deal or No Deal, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, although for that one I pinched the models from a public repo and reprogrammed the logic to make it Twitch compatible and to allow bespoke questions, Wheel of Fortune, The Code, and the aforementioned Danger Zone 2. However, with the exception of Danger Zone 2, none of these were original ideas. They were all recreations of TV shows, so it felt a bit cheap to try and pass one of these off as a game for this project. Even Danger Zone 2 was a recreation of my own idea, so it still doesn't feel like it quite qualifies. And then a few weeks ago, I had this idea about making a game that was Google-proof. One of the inherent problems of running any sort of quiz in the 21st century is that Google knows everything. The folks in the community I'm a part of are all quiz buffs, and by and large, they respect the rule that we play fairly. Sadly, an aggressive honesty policy wouldn't necessarily wash on a bigger scale. So how would it be creating an online quiz show that can't be cheated, or at least can't be cheated easily? And thus, Google That was born. There's an argument to be made that this is an unnecessarily passive-aggressive title that doesn't really give much insight as to what's on offer, but on the plus side, it gave me a really easy colour scheme and font family to work with. So what is Google That? Well, it's a very 90s looking quiz show that features 12 players battling it out to get to the highest score in a variety of trivia-based rounds. It was really important to me that as far as possible, it was going to be challenging for anybody who decided to play unfairly to do well. One of the easiest ways of doing that is using a concept that I first used in Danger Zone, namely time-restricted questions. On its own though, this wasn't going to be enough, so there's various gimmicks in the rounds which add further layers of complexity to looking things up. The first round, the early bird, is multiple choice and only rewards the first 5 players to answer correctly. In Bid on the Buzzer, only the most confident players get a chance to buzz in by bidding the highest value, an amount they lose if they get it wrong, and thereafter only the first to buzz gets the points. In Taboo, players get more points the more obscure their answer is, whereas answers submitted by multiple players get fewer points. In Blind Auction, players have to submit a bid as to how many questions they can answer on particular categories of increasingly difficult questions, getting no points at all if they fail to meet their target. All the while, the question writing process is treated so that the questions are obfuscated and not necessarily Google-friendly in their raw form. For example, what is the capital city of the country in which the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was born? Putting that into Google in its raw form won't yield the answer as the top hit, which you kind of need if you've only got 15 seconds to answer. But if you know that Boris Johnson was born in the United States, it's an easy question. This style of question writing takes a bit longer, but since it's not really a question burner of a game, there's only 26 questions in an entire episode, it's fairly manageable. The other reason this is manageable is because I can outsource the question writing process. Now, I mentioned that this game wasn't going to be uploaded to itch.io, and that's true. Because it's a game where there's Twitch integration, more on that a little later, which is hard-coded to my Twitch account, it doesn't make much sense to share it publicly, because a little bit of decompiling could reveal more information than I'm prepared to share. Furthermore, it's not really a game you can sit and play on your own, but is more geared towards communities. Finally, it's a game that in its present form would not really work outside of the Unity environment. I used a plugin called Naughty Attributes to add some user-friendly buttons in the inspector to progress in-game events. In past games, I've used simple keyboard hotkeys, but that's proven to be a nightmare in terms of memorizing different button sets for different games. I'm getting a Stream Deck for my birthday later this month, which will hopefully make that process easier, but even with that in place, without adding a very complex overlay to the game which would ruin the aesthetic, it's not going to function as well in a built version. All that having been said, it would have felt a bit rubbish to not have anything available to download, so the thing that you can download from itch.io ties back to the outsourcing of questions. I've designed a companion app that goes with the game, which will allow users to write questions in the format required, export to a simple JSON file, and then send to me to plug directly into the game. This makes the question writing process significantly easier for me to manage, and also allows guest writers to easily contribute to an episode of the show without having to have access to the full game or even Unity. Using community written trivia has proven to be incredibly popular with my builds of The Code and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, so in addition to taking some of the workload off me, it gives budding question writers a chance to contribute to the show. As to the programming itself, the most interesting thing by far to talk about here is the Twitch integration. Twitch is a great platform for streamers in general, but so much more is unlocked when you start delving into the API and what is on offer to make apps and games fully interactive with your viewers. In my earliest game, Countdown, I didn't bother with any sort of Twitch integration and just hosted the games between two players in Discord for very much a spectator event. From Blockbusters onwards, I was using a slightly bodged together bespoke version of the Twitch API, which did everything I needed it to. It allowed a bot to write questions and messages into the chat, and it read the chat from players, both as whispered and public responses. From that point, it's a simple matter of using string comparisons to determine whether your players are submitting correct or incorrect answers. For Google that, however, I finally upgraded the foundational architecture and moved over to TwitchLib, a Twitch-specific plugin which allows greater and easier implementation of options, although pulling down the player avatars into the game is the only one I've used so far. It also makes the classes I've written more future-proofed, so rather than having to essentially rewrite the code at the start of every project, it should now just be a matter of copying over the classes into a new project, and away I go. Twitch isn't without its limitations, however. The inherent problem with internet latency can give an unfair advantage to players with faster internet, and if my internet conks out mid-stream, as has happened a few times, it's almost impossible to restore a game to its former state without restarting the build. This game has also undergone some minor formatting changes from when it was first streamed at the end of July, with a view to making the gameplay more exciting. Still, those problems have workable solutions, and by and large, things run fairly smoothly when we play. Since you're not going to be able to download and play this game from itch.io, if you wanted to check it out, I'm streaming double bills of Google That on my Twitch channel on Saturdays at 8 PM BST until the middle of September. All you need to take part is a Twitch account, so why not head over and see it in action? So I'm at the midpoint and I'm back ahead of schedule. I've made 6 games inside 6 months, but now is not the time to slow down as we go on to project number 7. One of the ideas I definitely wanted to implement at some point was some sort of shooter game, mainly because I've never done one before, despite making a decent amount of first-person projects. However, I also need an excuse to dust off my VR headset, which was a birthday present last year, and after the initial excitement of getting it, it's been more of a gimmick that hasn't really been used that much. I'm not thinking that I'm going to be making anything on the level of Half-Life Alyx before anybody gets too excited. No, I think I'm going to take more inspiration from the 90s arcade light gun madness of Point Blank, which was always a highlight of going to the bowling alley for me in my teenage years. I'm thinking some sort of shooting gallery with a handful of scenarios and an aim for the top of the leaderboard vibe. Classic arcade-style pick-up-and-play goodness. I have it on good authority that this is also going to fulfill another criteria on my list of things to make, i.e. a game my wife would like, so that's encouraging. Unlike with pretty much all of the previous projects up until now, this project has not yet been started, though I did tinker around with a similar idea when I first got the headset about a year ago, so I've got an idea of what I'm going to be doing, even if I am starting a completely new project. Hopefully, I'll treat the second half of this project more in the spirit it was intended. Start a game and finish it before moving on. No guarantees, of course. Until next time, I hope to catch you in an episode of Google That sometime, but if not, I'll see you for some VR shooting in a month or so.